Hold on. And we're live. Welcome to yet another coronavirus edition of PCS Q&A. I'm your host, MJ Boyce, and I'm the Director of Community Outreach at PCS Grades. We have a doozy for you. And of course, as always, we have Megan Harless, our BA PCS Reform Advocate on our side as always. And before we introduce our special guest for this week and the topic, we're just going to go over our weekly housekeeping items. Same as every week, but you know you like to see this mug, so here we go. First and foremost, we bring the experts to you. And we bring those experts to you to answer all of those questions. But sometimes you're going to have specific questions that we may not be able to answer. And it's those specific questions. And for those types of questions, the end-all be-all forever and always resource for you will always be, one, your local chain of command, and number two, your local transportation office. Those are the people who know you. Those are the people who are dealing with your stuff. Those are the people who can help you with your specific situation because they are the decision makers. Again, we bring these experts to you. And me and Megan here, we do our research just for you. We answer all of your questions. That is a promise. And if we don't know the answer, we know who does. But if we don't know either of those things, we're going to go ahead and take your question for action, which you can leave right below in the comments section. And if you're watching the replay, give us a shout out, throw up a heart, whatevs. We got your back and we'll get to you. Last but not least, we need to work on flattening the curve, peeps. We see a rise in cases. We know that there's a lot of different moving parts with the moving process, especially in light of recent events. So we really need to be extra careful, which also our guest today is going to help us do a little bit too. She's going to help us find some information that's going to help keep us safe. But we need to flatten that curve because you know why? We're going to flatten Murphy with it. Y'all, we're coming for you, Murphy. We're going to flatten you when we flatten that curve. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Megan for those DoD updates. Megan?
Hey, everybody. So just a couple of updates today and a couple of things to reiterate. So the first one we've been hearing a lot of conversations happening about is about, do your movers need to wear masks? Do they need to wear gloves? Do they need to sanitize? So the guidance is it's a force protection guidance. It's to help keep your family safe, to help keep your service family members safe, to keep the crew safe. So they should be wearing a mask. They should be sanitizing those frequently touched surfaces. So we're going to drop that guidance again, those links, those pictures, those graphics into the comments below when we're done. Just as a reminder, they should be showing up wearing a mask. You guys should be trying to social distance as much as possible. Your family should be wearing a mask. If at any point somebody shows up, they don't have them, they don't want to wear them, they give you pushback, call your move coordinator, call your local transportation office, and make sure, everyone's just trying to stay safe as we work through these different times that we're all living in. The next one is there's been a lot of conversations that we have every year about do you tip your movers, do you feed your movers? And the guidance is that it is completely at your own discretion as to if you tip or if you feed. It is not required, but your crews should not be requesting it. Now, in terms of feeding your crews, we've heard back and forth between some various different companies that some companies are telling their movers do not accept food because of concerns, with the virus deal. Others are saying, if you do accept food, it should be individually packaged type of things. Others are saying, not at all. So if you want to provide food for your crews, talk with them at the beginning of the day, talk with your move coordinator, see what their company policies are to see if it's allowed, if they're accepting it. So that way you kind of know ahead of time before spending a bunch of money that they may not be able to accept on, lunch or dinner or whatever it may be. And then the last thing, very exciting, that came out yesterday is that the DoD released a new policy from Secretary of Defense Esper that non-local leave can now happen. It is the unit commander's approval authority as to if you can go or not. But they are opening it up to allow people to take leave outside of the local area, but you have to have approval from your unit commander. I expect either later this week or early next week, there should be policies coming out from the various services about this as to exactly what level of unit commander has the approval on it, and other requirements and regulations to take effect with that as well. So We're going to drop all that information in the comments so you guys have it, so you can go back, you can reference it, know about it, share it. But we're going to move on because we have a very exciting topic today, a very special guest with us from TRANSCOM. We have Lieutenant Colonel Raina Lowry here with us from TRANSCOM today to talk to us about Move.Mil. So welcome, Lieutenant Colonel Lowry, to our webinar. If you could please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Excellent. Well, thank you, MJ. Thank you, Megan. Hopefully you guys can read me loud and clear. Looking for thumbs up. Excellent. Well, first, again, thank you guys for letting me participate in today's event. This is a great opportunity to connect with DoD service members and families. And so I am absolutely thrilled to be talking today about, the personal property enterprise, because the whole reason we exist is to move DoD service members and their families. Just to share a little bit with the audience today, that I'm an Air Force logistician. I've served for 20 years on active duty, but I'm actually a military brat, and my parents are both veterans from the U.S. Navy, and I'm third generation because my grandfather also was a CB back in World War II. My career has taken me around the globe, and I have completed 12 permanent change of stations, PCS rotation moves. This includes domestic, CONUS and OCONUS moves, and long and short tours. I kind of wanted to share that I've moved as a single member. I then married my better half, Mr. Russ Lowry, and we moved as dual income, no kids. Then we moved again with pets, and now with young children. So, we've had an amazing journey and we've enjoyed it, but to be honest, not all of our moves were good ones. Which is why I'm so excited to be here with you guys speaking today and sharing what I consider one of the best resources that we have out there now for service members and families to help assist with moves. Joining me today and on the call, kind of helping us, is Mr. Andre Cook, who is U.S. TRANSCOM's Public Affairs, and so he'll be kind of driving around the site as we talk about it today, so that way I can go ahead and speak, and we'll be modeling some things for the audience. So thank you guys again for letting us be here. We're super excited to talk with everyone today and hear everyone's questions and feedback.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And again, welcome, Lieutenant Colonel Lowry. We're super excited that you're here. And by the way, can I just give you a kudos on your little profile picture with the uniform and the mask? And I'm digging the eyes. You're like, I got your number. I really like that picture. Okay, so here's the thing. Move.Mil is always thrown out there for the answers. Like, that's where all the information lives when it pertains to, PCS moves. We drop Move.Mil in every single webinar that we have because that's the place to go. So can you tell us briefly what Move.Mil is and why families need to know about it?
Absolutely. And MJ, I appreciate your enthusiasm. So first, let me say I am super glad and excited to hear that Move.Mil is, being thrown out there and shared as a resource for families. Move.Mil is our DoD portal for personal property moves, and it was created several years ago to streamline where moving information is located, because before it was scattered across various websites and references and resources. And so U.S. TRANSCOM, working together with the military services and the military claims offices, built the portal to kind of warehouse the one-stop shop information for all types of moves. Again, TRANSCOM's role is to help facilitate that. The services own a lot of the entitlements and authorities, and we're the ones who are here helping folks do that distribution and service the families as well. As you mentioned, MJ, it contains a wealth of information. But to be honest, my little brother who is in the Army told me this past week, he's like, sis, I've moved a couple times, but I've never looked at the site. And so I was preparing for today and I shared some of the stuff, and he even echoed, he's like, gosh, there's a lot of information out here. Why didn't I ever use this before? So that's a case in point. I am just encouraged that folks are staying with Move.Mil, but we really want folks to drive there and to look at the portal for information, because it will help create a successful move.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so now that we know what Move.Mil is, can you share with us, what are some highlights about Move.Mil? What should people know about this, and how can they find some of that information that they would need to know?
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Megan. So as you can see on the site now, you guys are streaming live. The time Move.Mil is to help service members and families prepare for their best move yet. And that's not just to be like tongue in cheek. We know moving is stressful. We know that is one of the top things that, military families will not just do once or twice in their careers if they, continue on. It'll be happening many times. So we wanted this to be very user friendly. And so now the portal can be seen on computers and mobile devices. I did want to share with folks that depending on what device you use, it might shift a little bit of how you see things, but the menu buttons there, the drop downs are there. It's all there just to orient everyone to the site. Maybe if they're streaming and joining us now, to go ahead and look at Move.Mil as we talk. The features that we've offered this summer is new. So you can see that we have added a search button. That is something we wanted to highlight. So if folks are just really quickly trying to grab information, they can type in possibly, boats or overseas or, any type of information, and it'll start linking them to where that content is on the page. So we're excited about the search feature. In addition, US TRANSCOM, in collaboration with the services, but also our spouse volunteers, helped us create a personal property quick reference guide. And so under the moving guidance tab up on the front page, you can see it. It's the quick reference guide, if you will. And we wanted to a pretty much one pager that kind of talks folks through preparing for their move, moving day and delivery, and then have all of the contact information. So again, I'm going to foot stomp this probably several times today. If they do nothing else, go to the quick reference guide, print it out, put it in your backpack, put it in your purse, have this resource available, because it really is, that reference guide that moving around, to have at your fingertips, to be able to have all the content and information to kind of help you through your move. So, and that was a collaboration of folks kind of putting stuff together of what do we need to know at our fingertips. So with that, also, again, I get really excited. We have several on the main page tutorials, things for folks to be able to know about how to create shipments, how to complete their customer satisfaction surveys, as well as at the very top, and Andre, as I'm watching on the site, to do new user registration. The portal is built just so we can make sure that as you're going through the various levels of your move, you have the resources available. And so I'll let Andre kind of hopefully navigate to the top of the page. And Megan, you touched on it just briefly, but again, we are in a new type of moving environment. And so moving with the COVID pandemic, those top three areas where we have frequently asked questions, we have our COVID health protection measures, and then our commitment letter. So these are resources that if folks are really just kind of focusing in on what's happening now and some questions that are happening and how to facilitate their move, we want to make sure that that's up front and center for folks to be able to use as a reference point as well. Again, there's been so many things changing since March on, we were at stop movement. Now we're moving through a phased opening. These things will continue to be updated, and we want to make sure that we point folks to those most updated information so that they can use them to make great moving decisions for their families.
Awesome. It's there, how it's kind of like going to Starbucks. You walk, if I can't walk in, well, I used to work at Starbucks, so shut out. But if I walked into Starbucks with somebody who's never been there, you know what I mean? Like, they're going to look at this and it's going to seem overwhelming because there's so many options. There's so much information. But if you go with somebody and somebody walks you through it, well, it's a different story. You're going to walk out of there being like, I'd like a venti soy latte. Thank you very much, with 4 shots and a bunch of whipped cream with a unicorn on top. You're going to know it because somebody's walking you through it, which is why I'm really glad you're here. So let's say I'm moving. Let's say I got my husband got orders and we're getting ready to move and we know where we're going. So what is it that a family like mine would need to do in order to set up a move on Move.Mil in DPS? And if you could also, we like to kind of spell out the acronyms, if you can explain also what DPS is as well.
Sure, thanks, MJ. And I like your Starbucks reference, because if you know what you want, going there is fairly simple. But if you are like me and novice, it can seem somewhat overwhelming. So hopefully today we'll kind of walk families through the site and be able to navigate so they feel comfortable, because everyone's move will be a little bit unique. And every time you move, it might be a little bit different depending on, variables and what's happening within your life. So real quick, you mentioned, where do we start? So the starting point for any PCS will always be orders. And once the service member has the orders in hand, they can go to Move.Mil, which will be then linked to DPS. But planning your move is so important. So, I'm a logistician, so I'm a big advocate of let's plan for this, major event in our life. And so on the plan your move, there's a lot of helpful links, that can kind of talk through what is happening. I really wanted to bring in, there's where do we get our personal property, office information? So, at your destination where you're going, you can find their information. And really just kind of, again, I wanted to highlight that DPS is the system where, so the Defense Personal Property System is where you're going to be making your shipment, making your shipments for your dates and so forth, but Move.Mil will be the education platform that kind of talks through the various levels. So, just real quick, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. So DPS, so the Defense Personal Property Shipment, will be where your shipment dates are put in. You'll receive shipment status information. Your transportation office will be contacting you regarding shipping status, storage, and then finally, if you have deliveries or any type of shipment information or questions. So that's kind of where there's a difference between Move.Mil and DPS, but there is a connection point there. So I just kind of wanted to circle it back that Move.Mil is the gateway to the DPS system, and that you can go in there under hot links and it can show you how to log in or create a new account. And so I just tested this because it's been a while since I've moved. So just to go ahead and create a new account, it only took a couple of seconds, and then they go ahead and authenticate that and activate your account, and then you're ready to go. But again, the starting point is having your orders in hand.
So when talking about DPS, like, can we talk a little bit more about that? We know it's the place we go to there through Move.Mil as a place to set up our move, but what is some good helpful information to know about DPS? If a family logs in for the first time and they're looking at it, what is some of that, all those little buttons and things within DPS that they should know about?
All right, so well, obviously DPS will be kind of where you put in all of your customer information, your addresses, your contact information, where you're going, and then the transportation office will use that along with the moving companies to contact you throughout your relocation process. And it will track your shipments and status and so forth. But I'm going to drive us to the tutorials right now, because since I don't have active duty orders to kind of model for the audience. If you go to the tutorials, Andre, for us, it'll show you the screenshots that a customer or family member would see as they go in to create a shipment or create a claim. And they kind of walk through where all the individual areas that you would be looking to put in information, to click through. I see Andre right now going in to create a shipment and kind of highlighting for a new user where they're putting all that information in. All right, I see him into self-counseling now. So again, Megan, I would like to be able to go into like a whole experience of what DPS would be. I might have to do that and come back to that in a later session to really kind of give some screenshots for families to say, here's how I would do this, but I don't have something right now that I could do tangible for the audience. So the best we can do is to go to the tutorials, which should talk through and walk through all the steps and the buttons and kind of the arrows driving to the next phase of the information.
Yeah, and can I just say, for those that are watching that don't know, we get a lot of questions within the groups, how do I file a claim? How do I do this? That one of the most important, useful things on Move.Mil, at least to me, is the tutorials that you can see there on the side. That there's so many different tutorials that you can look at to help walk you through step by step. And so I just love that the tutorials are on there, because I think they are probably the single most helpful thing that is on Move.Mil for families.
Well, thank you, Megan. That's really important. And if the tutorial doesn't exist today, I just wanted to throw out there for the group, we will build one. So again, these are the most common ones that we've used over the past several years of doing moving. But as we keep going forward, we love to refine and make sure that the tutorials hit the mark for families. So if there's something in there that doesn't seem like we've missed a step, or there needs to be some additional fidelity talked about, we will take that and we will modify this. We can do that in real time, as we go through this peak season. We don't have to wait.
I love that you said that, because you said, if you see something, we'll build it. Like, if you build it, they will come. So I just, I had to throw that in there. And I think that it's really awesome, the tutorials, especially for someone like myself. I'm a visual learner. And so this kind of hits all of the angles. And to be honest, just gonna throw it out there, you're breaking it down Barney style for me, and those tutorials are Barney style for me, and I love that. So here's my next question. Where does a family find their TSP, their transportation provider, their transportation service provider? Where would they find that information on DPS?
All right, well, excellent. So when a family goes in there and creates their shipment, and they are then assigned a TSP, or transportation service provider, or moving company, once that gets assigned to them, they will be contacted by the TSP, and it will reflect that in DPS. So once they're given an assignment, their information then kind of is located within DPS. So when they log in, they should be able to see that each and every time. Again, the TSP should be contacting them and reaching out to them to give them their contact as well. And if you're like me, I save that stuff into my contacts whenever they call me and say, okay, you're my, advocate for now, and you're going to be the person that I talk to when I have questions. And so usually that starts a good relationship, starting at the beginning and then through my move. So that way, if there are questions, I can contact them immediately. And of course, if there are challenges and you're not being able to reach out and contact the TSP, you can always go back to the transportation offices, and they will be able to link back to some phone numbers if you're not able to use what is, if you're not making that connection, you're not getting that contact. They are also a great advocate to reach out.
So we hear a lot of times people have trouble signing into DPS for one reason or another. Sometimes it's issues on their computer, it's firewall issues, it's whatever reason they can't get on. Where can a family turn to or go to get help if they have issues with DPS?
Megan, that's a great question. And I'm one of those folks that usually has some kind of technical challenge, as you guys can, attest to. So DPS, when it does experience, there's connectivity or latency or even some brief outages, in those events, especially during peak season when we see lots of volume, we are driving and Andre's showing kind of, here are the areas with our DPS system response center. So if it's a technical issue, those are the folks that will be able to help resolve that question as quickly as possible. And again, we want to make sure that folks are driving to that and filling out a trouble ticket, sending an email, or making those phone calls. And that's 24/7 that somebody will be able to respond. Because we acknowledge that when the system has hiccups or latency issues, that creates a ripple across all of our customers and our shipping offices. And so we want to get that resolved as quickly as possible, and that we are monitoring that. So I wanted to share with the group too that over the last couple of weeks, obviously we've seen a spike of folks calling with questions because of COVID and what was happening with the stop move. We haven't seen any correlation in DPS with challenges with the system or booking shipment. So I think that's a good thing. So numbers are just that, but if there are folks out there that are experiencing challenges signing into the system, please let us know. Don't suffer in silence. We want to make sure that the user experience is good and that they're making the connections, because we want folks to go in there and book their shipments and make the moves happen and not wait.
No, and that's awesome. And the fact that, I mean, we all have, sometimes we all end up with these glitches. I mean, Murphy's Law wouldn't be Murphy's Law. He'd be out of a job if it wasn't for the internet. I'm telling you. So he just crawls right up in there. And so, knowing that there's a resource and someone to call, like a real person, 24 hours a day, if I'm in the middle of the move and I'm ready to pull my hair out and something's just not okay, I have that number to call. And by the way, just for our audience, the numbers that just flashed up, if you didn't catch it, if you didn't write it down, that's totally cool, because guess what? You can replay that on our Facebook page. All right. So my question, okay. If I'm thinking about doing a PPM, a personally procured move, for those of you out there, and for the old school peeps like me, formerly known as Diddy move. And I'm just going to pause here for a second. I've never done a Diddy move. You know, we had a lot of overseas and back and forth and whatever. But I did have a friend. She asked me to come over for some pizza and beer, and I ended up moving her couch into a moving. Wow, my brain was just exploding, and I couldn't understand why would anybody want to do that, but especially in light of COVID and the DoD stop move and different things like that. A lot of families are considering doing a PPM. So if I'm thinking about doing a PPM, is there a place on the site where I can estimate like how much stuff I might have, and, you know, like what, or Ppm Entitlement Estimator? Is there stuff like that on there?
Absolutely. So MJ, you make me laugh because I think I've been caught up in the, hey, come over and we're just going to move a few things. And you're like, oh my gosh, how much stuff do you have? You know, so PPMs are a big top. So personal procured moves or the old Diddy moves. And like you, there are some folks that are advocates for it. There are some folks that are like, maybe I'll do a partial, maybe I'll do a full. And it gives folks an option, you know, and right now there's a lot of things on the table. So there is information on Move.Mil for folks to kind of get some estimators. So first, I'll let Andre navigate to our weight estimator tool, which is located underneath the tools and resources tab. I'm letting him go over. And so this is where, if you're really, you know, new to this, or you just, you know, kind of wanted to explore, how much stuff do I have? And so it's a really great reference. You go room by room and location in your house. You can put, I have a king size bed, I've got bunk beds, I've got 4 couches. And you pretty much, I mean, we try to be very open with a lot of different types of items people are shipping. And as you click through and add the number of items you have at the very bottom, you can see that the total starts, you know, adding up. I started playing with this and starting to see how much stuff, you know, do I have, and I'm usually at the very max of my moving entitlement, and it seems to be like the more my family grows, the more stuff we accumulate and then we move with. So I'm typically going, okay, towards the end of this, how much stuff do we need to get rid of or purge or give away? Because again, you can be very thorough with this, and it should give you a rough estimate of how much stuff you have. Again, this is where I'll put that plug that, you know, going back to your transportation office to get a final, you know, weight estimate, to just talk about that is very, very important. And of course, your service provider is going to come through and do a survey, you know, to kind of walk through and look to see, are you moving a gun safe? Do you have a piano? Do you have, you know, other very large or awkward items that would be maybe not included in this list? So that's a great resource. Again, that's just to get you an idea of your weight. Parallel to that, you kind of need to know what your entitlement is. And so, Andre, if you'll go ahead and move us over to the moving guide, we move down there, and there's the entitlements and guidelines. And that is going to go through our rank, if you're moving with dependents or without dependents, or if you're moving CONUS or OCONUS, and that'll give you what your entitlement is. And so you need to know both, right? You need to know what your overall entitlement is going to be. And then you also need to be looking at how much stuff do you have. So as we kind of navigate this, and you're kind of looking at it again, Lieutenant Colonel, with dependents, moving CONUS, I am usually right up at the cusp. If Andre does it, I think I'm at like 17,500 pounds. In our last move, we were at 19,000 pounds. So we ended up diddying some of that and getting rid of quite a bit before we actually did our move. So it was very good for us to do this early and to kind of see, you know, within not just like a week prior to the moving company showing up, like a month or two in advance, to say, I don't think we need that second couch, or maybe we don't need to hold on to all these baby toys that we, you know, currently have floating all over the house. So yes, we you know, let it go, just to give folks, you know, kind of the, I mean, it's a real thing to make sure we don't, at the end of this, if you go over your entitlement, get hit with a bill. And so that's, again, why it's so important as we go through this, that you know what your entitlement is and you kind of know what your weight is going to be, because if you go over that, it could be that you would be getting a nice bill from Uncle Sam saying, hey, you've gone over. So.
Yeah, that's a lot of great points. I mean, we always joke in our house that, step one is we set up our move. Step two is that we then purge our house, because I know there's broken toys that my kids can get rid of, clothes that don't fit, everything. Because we're those people too, right at the top of our limit, mostly because of our home gym. So for somebody, we know Move.Mil is important with all the information. We know DPS is where we need to go to set up our move. But for somebody that is moving for the first time, what are some things specifically on Move.Mil that they should be looking at and should be aware of?
All right, Megan. So we'll go ahead and start kind of from the beginning. So when Andre was clicking on in the beginning of let's plan our move. So our first time movers, say they're first, coming into the military, they've never done this before. I'm a military brat, so I feel like I've been kind of ingrained by my mothers and stuff about what to expect from the military. But planning your move, so important. Knowing what our entitlement is, how much stuff do we have, where are we going, are there any restrictions of things you can or cannot bring into those locations, specifically like OCONUS, what are you allowed to bring, what aren't you allowed to bring? It's important to know all that information going into it. Again, Move.Mil isn't to replace counseling, but I feel like, and you guys, I touched on, your audience is very well educated. They like to go out there and research and kind of come to a counseling session with already most of their questions answered and go in with like, these are my specific case in points. Please help me, make sure I understand, X, Y, Z. So again, as we're planning our move for our first time movers, just to understand what is out there as they go through and some of the helpful hints of, what's authorized, what's not authorized, what are our entitlements. Those things would be very, very helpful as they go into to talk to their transportation offices for the first time.
I'm on mute. Somebody's trying to shut me up. Sorry. Not a lot of people have been successful with that, by the way. Not even my husband, who, by the way, is watching. Shout out, hubby. So there's a lot of families that reach out to us and say, I'm not getting in touch with the people that I need to get in touch with. What do I do? Who do I talk to? I'm about to pull my hair out. Please don't make me bald. Where can somebody go to find that contact information, either for their local transportation office or for their move coordinator?
Oh, excellent point, MJ. And hopefully no one has to pull their hair out. Again, right now, more than ever, we need to be able to be connected, and knowing who to call is very important. So to contact our transportation offices, there is, again, you go to the Tools and Resources tab, you open it up, and there's a drop-down link, and you'll find, it says, find a nearby location. And so as Andre's maneuvering through there, that will be able to, if you know your zip code, a base location, you go ahead and type that information in there. That will provide the content. So I'd like to, again, I'm a show and tell kind of person. So let's go ahead and let's do a few examples if that's okay with your audience. So, we're here at Scott Air Force Base and the zip code is 62269. So I'm getting ready to move and I want to reach out to my transportation service, or my transportation office. What is their phone number? How do I get in contact with them? So as Andre scrolls down, you can see it not only gives me their location. So if I'm driving there or, need to go ahead and actually physically get to the office, that would give me the address. But it'll also give me their phone numbers, whether it's DSN or commercial. It gives me their email addresses, which is important. And I know for some of our spouses, we highlighted this earlier, that people were calling and calling and calling, and they're like, we're not getting anyone. Well, that's because a lot of folks were teleworking. So, then we were driving folks to being like, hey, let's use email. Email is a great, platform right now. When we first started out, hit the emails, and they were getting back to customers that way. So right now we've kind of gone back to folks are in the office and some are still teleworking. So both of those options are available. But again, I just want to highlight that all that information is at a drop of, just clicking in the zip code. But again, maybe you don't have the zip code. Maybe for case in point, you just know you're going to Korea. So Andre, if you will, let's put in Youngsong. So someone's going overseas. I've never been there before. You know, how do I get in contact with that transportation office? So again, you can go by location. It's a beautiful part of the country and the world. Excellent. And then again, it'll provide the phone numbers in order to call, as well as emails. And again, just being mindful of the time zone changes, that you the 13-hour difference trying to call them on your night versus their day. Again, very, very important. And as we go through this, I think that family members at a button or a click can get that resource. And I think, now everyone has their mobile devices that they can find it on their phone, which will be great. So one more thing, I feel like everyone has great locations that they maybe want to go to. So if you just for giggles wanted to go to Germany and say, hey, let's see what's going on, how's the weather over there? I would love to get PCS there at some point if anyone's listening. But I want to go to Germany. How do I get a hold of the transportation office there? Again, there's several locations, in Germany for folks with PCS too. You can click on whichever location is yours and then get that contact information. So again, I foot stomp, but this is another great resource for folks to be able to find very, very quickly their transportation office, as opposed to just using Google or, trying to look up, other just base information, which I know there's a lot of great websites, but we're trying to warehouse all that content here for families.
No, this is so helpful and so amazing. Is there anything, before we get into questions and comments from the folks watching, is there anything else about Move.Mil that we haven't talked about or discussed that you guys want to share and talk about?
Sure. Well, I think it's important as we continue to kind of walk through the site is, the banners at the top, whether it's the moving guide, the tutorials, the customer service. So we haven't really talked a lot about the customer service feature. So as we go through that, I think that's important. This will give a lot of information to folks. Again, we don't talk a lot, but if you are moving your vehicle, shipping a vehicle, that usually happens a little bit earlier than some of your other moves. Knowing the phone numbers, and right now, especially of how do you schedule that drop off or that pickup if you're going to another country. Having all that information underneath the customer service area is really going to be good content for folks. We also have a lot of folks that have had issues, and so we developed a very robust frequently asked questions, and so that is also on the main drop-down page that you can go to. And we tried to bucketize the frequently asked questions so folks can kind of go through and see, before your move, during your move, at the end of your move. And there, like I said, there are dozens of FAQs out there where we've gone through and said, okay, we think this has happened, or we've known this has happened in the past. Let's just go ahead and put out the answer, so that way we're not having to go into a, it's never been done before. Because in a lot of ways, there's a lot of this stuff has been talked about and has probably been counseled on several times to folks. So again, it's just a great resource that if you look through it real quick and you're like, this applies to me, go ahead and hit it up and get the answers that you need. They're at your fingertips. So again, I just think this is a great, maybe underutilized resource, but the frequently asked questions, when I started going through there and going, hey, this applies to me, just to revalidate that it was still, because
Did we lose you?
things change, and this is a great area. You did. Am I back on? Can you hear me?
You're back, and we're back. Go for it.
Okay. All right. No, sorry about that. One of the other things that I wanted to share regarding Move.Mil is this resource is, obviously geared towards our service members and families, and that we are constantly in a refresh and update mode. So if things are not there that are big questions or gaps that are happening, we want to be able to modify the portal to be very user-friendly and to address those questions. And so, as we go through this, things that I thought about, that have come in the last week, if you will, there were questions about, well, what about boats? I've never moved with a boat, but that is something that as folks are now COVIDing, there's a lot of more bicycles, there's a lot more boats, there's a lot more hot tubs and things that people are like, well, I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of things and now I want to move with them. So how would I find out information about, boats, and are they authorized? How do I move them? And again, the site has information on that. Another big one, I lived in Italy for a brief period, but an alcohol shipment, can I move with my alcohol? What are the rules to that? What are the fees associated with alcohol shipments? Just, things that might be, a little bit on the cusp of how do I address this? How do I move with this? Has anything changed? So again, those are some big things within the site that I think we're able to address pretty easily for folks. But again, the portal itself is interactive. I will continue to foot stomp the quick reference guide as being a great resource for folks to be able to keep with them as they're moving right now, and to also just be if there's questions that are happening regarding COVID or things are changing, that we're going to continue to populate the portal with the most updated information that we have based on the CDC guidelines and OSD policy to keep families informed of what's happening. Because again, we want them to feel empowered. We want them to make sure that they know that they have a voice to us and that we're listening. So with that, I'll go ahead and pause because I want to make sure I talk a lot. My husband says, "Man, you talk very loudly," and he's excited. He's listening upstairs as with the kids are all kind of like playing. But again, this is just such a neat resource for us, and it's for you. It's for all of us to be able to use, and we just want to make sure that we're hopefully, again, with you guys sharing with us today, reaching a broader audience to be able to use this.
No, of course. And we get a lot of replays on this, especially with our Oconus peeps. Shout out. And also shout out to your husband for hanging out with the kiddos while you're doing this gig. We really appreciate it. So we have a couple seconds. We have a couple minutes actually. And so before we only had like one comment, and I'm guessing that a lot of this is going to come through in 24 hours. We're going to end up sending you a few questions because at our 24-hour period, we have a lot more usually. And by the way, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, ideas, because we have a lot of idea fairies in the audience, put those comments, questions, concerns right there. Boom, in the comment section, and we will make sure to get them to Lieutenant Colonel Lowry as well. But I have a question. So, where'd she go? Oh no! She'll be back.
Did we lose her?
We did lose her.
The choice of everybody remote working right now with COVID and our current operating environment is that we're all in different locations. That MJ's in DC, I'm in Texas, Lieutenant Colonel Lowry's up at Scott Air Force Base outside of St. Louis. And so the distance, the technical issues, it happens, y'all, but it's the life that we're in.
But you have to notice we do a darn good job at keeping it to a minimum. This is probably the first drop off, and it might be because Murphy, I suppose. Right. So, but we got through all of the questions. Yeah, we got through all of the questions, and that was fantastic. So we want to thank you. If you're still watching, Lieutenant Colonel Lowry, or if you hop back on, either way, we appreciate you. We appreciate all that you're doing. We appreciate TRANSCOM. We appreciate Andre, who's in the background, who's the public affairs specialist, who's helping us out today. We did get an interesting comment that I just really wanted to highlight, and it's more of a shout out than anything, and it's from Jamie. Jamie, shout out. She says, I believe, it's my first PCS, and I was told to utilize this. I think it's funny because I only have less than 1,000 pounds, and I'm still letting the military move me. Jamie, I promise you, you are light years ahead of where I was at my first PCS. Mm-hmm. For sure. That's number one, because I knew nothing and I didn't have any desire to seek out information. That's number one. But number two, you could literally hear an echo in my house because I had so little stuff after our first move. We had like a couch and a crib and a bed, the end. So do not feel bad at all. And it's not like whether it's, 1,000 pounds or 2,000 pounds, at least you don't have to worry about, that extra weight. But I really just want to highlight that I think it's awesome that you're utilizing this as a resource, this webinar, and the guests. Wouldn't you agree, Megan?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to your point, Jamie, I mean, my husband's first move, he had just his bedroom set. And so I'm sure that was probably around £1,000, maybe less. A lot of people go back and forth, at what point of pound weight do you consider doing a ppm versus letting the military move you? And it's all a personal choice as to whether you want to have that control, you want to coordinate everything yourself, or let somebody else do it, and you just drive from point A to point B. So at least having, that amount of stuff, 1,000 pounds or less, I mean, it's going to fit on a truck. It's not going to get separated. It's going to show up. So I know a lot of people that have, that little bit of stuff and they still let the military take care of it. They just don't want the hassle of trying to coordinate it all themselves.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and Lieutenant Colonel Lowry is back. Shout at us if you hear us, Lieutenant Colonel Lowry.
I got you. Thank you. Sorry, just lost connection for a second, but I'm right back in with you.
Exactly.
So,
take that,
yes.
Murphy. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight, if you didn't see it, we had Jamie here. It's their first PCS, and she said I was told to utilize this, and I think it's funny because I only have less than 1,000 pounds, and I'm letting the military move me. And we were just, kind of reiterating, Jamie is light years ahead of where I was at this point in my first PCS, but also utilizing this as a resource is amazing. But we've all been there where we're moving with, I moved my first time with 2 garbage bags. That's all we had, 2 garbage bags and a crib for my kid. That's it. That's all I had.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, it's a great question. And for folks that are, coming new to this, they might not have a lot of stuff. I know one of my lieutenants had about a minivan full of stuff. And I was like, is that all that you have? And they were like, that is all that I own. Like, we need to get you some kitchen stuff because clearly, you don't even have a microwave or a toaster. But again, it's completely optional, but you don't feel bad. That is, we see folks that are, 500 pounds, all the way to 19,000 pounds. Like, this is something that we are supposed to do and we do for you. And if you don't want the hassle of having to do it yourself, that is why we exist, in order to move it for you. So again, coming out, looking at the site, seeing, making sure you don't have any flammables or anything that you're not supposed to move. That's usually what I end up carrying in my car, is all the things that I really can't pack, and then a cooler full of stuff out of the refrigerator, all the condiments that I'm just going to be taking to my next location, because that tends to sometimes be quite a large quantity, if you can imagine.
Absolutely. And so we have, Lizanne. Lizanne's our content manager at PCS Grades. Hey, Lizanne, content editor. She'd never seen the tutorials before. But she also said that she moved Oconus back in 2012, and she thinks that this would have been so helpful. They had a lot of questions then, and they had no idea how to get answers. And I think that speaks volumes to where Move.Mil is right now. And the great resource that it absolutely is. Again, it's just that level of awareness and having somebody kind of be able to walk you through it. I wish I would have had somebody standing next to me, just like Starbucks, saying, okay, this is this. And I'd be like, all right, I got this. You know what I mean? So Move.Mil is very helpful. And we thank you for being on and kind of being me as far as Starbucks goes.
Well, I am, again, doing this alone can be a little intimidating, and just going to a site, and again, there's a lot of content there, kind of walking through each of the phases. And then as you kind of unpack this, it just, I think, makes it easier. And the more you do this, you think you know it. Like, everyone's like, oh, I've moved a dozen times, but things change. And so that's why we're trying to make this, so powerful, to have a lot of things that families can go, no matter what their, experience level or what's happening in their life, that they can go use and answer questions for them.
Awesome. Megan, do you have any saved rounds, my friend?
I do not. I'm just very thankful that Lieutenant Colonel Lowry was able to be here with us today. I know in the spouse groups a lot, you get told, go to Move.Mil. The information's on Move.Mil. And, as we've said before, it can be kind of intimidating because there's so much there. You're not sure how to use it. You're not sure where to go look for the information. So, I'm just very appreciative of her time being able to come here today and kind of walk us through it to show us how to use it a little bit better. So that way it's not such this intimidating site that we often see. So thank you for that. And I hope this is very helpful for a lot of others. And, we can't wait to have TRANSCOM back on here again in a couple weeks talking about more good things to help families out.
Absolutely. And again, Lieutenant Colonel Lowry, thank you so, so much. We will hopefully have you back at a later time for a later topic. TBD. You might need to
Well,
talk to the other
MJ,
half.
Megan, yes, thank you. He had to laugh because, of course, he was excited, but he's like, for families right now, we know that this is a very unusual time, and it's stressful no matter when we move. But again, we want to make sure that folks know that they are empowered to make choices within what's happening in their moves, and that this is a resource to kind of be utilized. And again, at a later time, we need to come back and refresh this, because as we keep moving forward and kind of evolving the program, the portal will change. And I want to make sure that folks feel very comfortable that this is something that is kind of like a natural place and resource to be used. But again, we're just thankful that you guys had us today, and then we can kind of talk about this and get the message out there that, Move.Mil, we don't want to just be kind of a catchphrase. We want folks to be able to go in there and feel very comfortable that this is their security blanket, to give them answers and to help hopefully provide, that little bit of reassurance in a very unsure time that steadies us, that feels, like we've got answers. I've got this. I'm not going to let Murphy drive me to make some really bad choices. So
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you guys. Again, this has been wonderful. I would love to come back on. And if anyone has questions or things that come in after today, please let us know. I want to hear them. I want to be able to, the whole TRANSCOM team, be able to adapt and make sure that this is something that is very useful for all the folks across the department and for all the families. Again, I've got small children, and so we were going through the site and kind of looking through, where's my section, Mommy? And I'm like, you're right, there's a little bit of an area, but I definitely think that that's important too. We don't want to, they are important to our moving family, and they've got questions. And so if there's some things that we can do to help, adapt to let that be a part of the moving process, again, I think it'll help in the long run. So again, thank you ladies today. This has been wonderful. Andre, thank you so much for helping me drive to the site. And I look forward to talking to you guys in the future. So stay safe, stay healthy, and I look forward to talking to you guys again. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, to our audience, this too shall PCS. Bye.